At 80, Rita Moreno is finally telling the truth about the disaster behind Empty Nest. What started as her big comeback turned into a nightmare when she couldn't remember a single line during filming. The audience tried cheering her on, but it only made things worse. After 15 humiliating takes, NBC scrapped everything and replaced her. Then came the ultimate insult. When they fired her, the show's writers got their revenge by calling her character a slut on air. Rita Moreno was born Rosa Dolores Alverio Marcano in a small town in Puerto Rico in 1931. Though she was born in Humacao, her earliest memories came from the nearby town of Juncos, where she was actually raised. Life there was quiet and simple, surrounded by the green beauty of the El Yunque rainforest. She lived with her mother, Rosa Maria, who worked as a seamstress, and her father, Paco, who was a farmer. Little Rosita, as they called her, would dance for her grandparents just for fun. Even as a child, she already had a spark that made people smile. The scent of flowers in the air and the warm breezes of Puerto Rico stayed in her heart forever. But everything changed when her mother made a big decision. Rosita's mother left her husband, which was a bold move at the time. In Puerto Rico during the 1930s, it wasn't common for women to walk away from their marriages, especially in a strict Catholic culture. But Rosa Maria wanted more for her daughter. She went to New York City ahead of time, saving every penny she could while working long hours in sweatshops. Eventually, she brought Rosita over by ship. The boat was called the SS Carabobo, which Rosita later joked meant stupid face in Spanish. It was a rough 5-day trip, and when they arrived, everything felt cold and strange. New York was nothing like Puerto Rico. The weather was freezing. They moved into a small apartment in the Bronx with 12 other relatives. Rosita didn't speak English, and just after arriving, she caught chickenpox and was sent to the hospital. She was all alone, couldn't understand anyone, and her mother wasn't allowed to stay with her. That scary memory stayed with her for the rest of her life. She remembered looking at the Statue of Liberty from the ship and thinking it was the president holding a giant ice cream cone. Even in the middle of fear, her imagination was alive. Soon after settling in, a neighbor suggested that Rosita should take dance lessons. Her mother found a teacher, Paco Cancino, who happened to be the uncle of Hollywood star Rita Hayworth. The lessons were expensive, but her mother made it work. Rosita trained hard, learning the fast steps and dramatic moves of Spanish dance. These lessons gave her the skills and the confidence she would carry for years. It also gave her a connection to Rita Hayworth, a name that would later help shape her own. By the age of 9, Rosita was already performing at nightclubs in Greenwich Village. She was just a child, but people were amazed by her dancing. She traveled to shows alone, taking the subway through New York at night. It was dangerous, but she didn't seem afraid. By 11, she was working in film, dubbing Spanish versions of Hollywood movies. She lent her voice to stars like Elizabeth Taylor and Judy Garland. At an age when most kids were in school, Rosita was earning money for her family. She dropped out of school at 15 to focus fully on performing. Her talent took her to Broadway when she was just 13. She landed a role in a play called Skydrift, performing with grown-up actors like Eli Wallach. That moment changed everything. Talent scouts saw her and thought she had movie star potential. Not long after, the head of MGM Studios, Louis B. Mayer, gave her a contract. He looked at her and said she reminded him of Elizabeth Taylor, only Spanish. She had even styled herself to look like Taylor on purpose. It felt like a dream. Rita Moreno arrived in Hollywood full of dreams, but the industry quickly showed her what it really wanted from her. MGM signed her at just 18 and immediately told her to change her name. She became Rita Moreno because it sounded more glamorous, more acceptable. That was the first of many ways Hollywood tried to erase her identity and replace it with something easier to package. She was barely settled before she was cast over and over again in roles that had nothing to do with who she was. Polynesian, Egyptian, Native American, whatever the part, as long as it wasn't American. She called herself the house ethnic, and that's exactly how the studios treated her. They used her to fill any role that called for someone exotic, but never gave her a real character, never gave her depth. It didn't matter how talented she was. It didn't matter how many languages she spoke or how well she could act. Hollywood saw her as a type, not a person. Even when she finally started landing bigger roles, the parts were still degrading. She played what they called island girls, characters who were almost always poor, helpless, and either mistreated or abused. They had no stories of their own. No love, no power, no voice, and she hated it. But saying no meant risking everything. She didn't have the luxury to wait for better roles. She feared that if she turned down the few parts she was offered, the phone might just stop ringing for good. The pressure got to her. All the humiliating parts, all the makeup to make her darker, all the forced accents, all the scenes that made her feel ashamed. It built up over time, and in 1961, right in the middle of her supposed breakthrough, she tried to take her own life. She survived, but the pain didn't go away just because she won an Oscar for West Side Story. She thought the win might change everything. Instead, nothing changed. The scripts kept coming, but they were still the same. Barefoot Latina girls in the background, sometimes in gangs, sometimes in the jungle. Always flat, always forgettable. One moment that stuck with her came right after the Oscar win. She approached a powerful female agent, full of hope. The agent looked her in the eye and said, "Sweetheart, you don't have what it takes." Just like that, the excitement drained out of her. It was as if Hollywood couldn't see past her face, no matter what she had accomplished. For 7 years, she didn't do another film. Not because she didn't want to act, but because she couldn't bear to keep playing those same demeaning roles. What hurt even more was how all of this made her feel about herself. As a little girl in New York, she had already learned that light skin was better, that blonde was beautiful, that being Puerto Rican wasn't something to be proud of. It was something to hide. She looked in the mirror and felt dirty, even when she was clean. She wanted to be like the girls she saw in the movies, and for a long time, she thought that meant erasing who she was. She got a taste of something different in Singin' in the Rain, playing Zelda Zanders, a flashy silent film star. For once, she wasn't barefoot. She wasn't an island girl. She had makeup and dresses and lines that didn't rely on an accent. She thought, maybe this is it. But it wasn't. The moment passed, and the same roles came back. In The King and I, she played Tuptim, a slave girl longing for her forbidden love. It was a big film, and it won awards, but her part was lifeless. Even Yul Brynner, her co-star, told her it was boring. She agreed. These roles never let her show who she really was. They didn't ask her to stretch or grow. They just asked her to stand there, look sad, and stay quiet. She was never even cast as Puerto Rican. Instead, her skin tone became a blank canvas. One day, she was Hawaiian, the next Filipino, then Egyptian. Her makeup kit was filled with dark powders and hoop earrings, tools to help her fit the mold. And always, the same response when she reached for something more. No, or worse, silence. She remembered how her agent would tell her they already said no, and that was it. No audition, no second chance, no room to show them what she could really do. She wanted to scream. She wanted to break through the door and beg them to just watch her, just give her a shot, but she couldn't. All she could do was wait. Wait and hope. Wait and wonder if anyone would ever see her for who she really was. As she tried to find her place in Hollywood, she faced something far worse than rejection: abuse. At one party, a studio executive walked up to her and said something so crude, she didn't even understand what it meant at first. He said it right in front of his wife. She was stunned. That was just the beginning. She was followed by powerful men who used their positions to control her. The studio sent her on fake dates with older men just to create gossip for the newspapers. She was treated like a prop, not a person. One of the worst moments came when her own agent raped her. She didn't leave him. She thought she couldn't. He was the only one helping her get work, and she felt trapped. That was the kind of world she was living in, where people smiled on camera but hid terrible things behind the scenes. When Rita Moreno got the role of Anita in West Side Story, she felt like she already knew the character. Anita wasn't just another part. She was a woman with fire, pride, and strength. For Rita, it was a rare chance to play a Latina who had dignity. Most of her earlier roles had been stereotypes: flat and full of cliches. Anita was different. She had self-respect, but even this role came with a problem. The song America originally opened with lines that insulted Puerto Rico. Rita was horrified. She was Puerto Rican herself, and there was no way she could say those words. She stood her ground. She told the filmmakers she wouldn't do it. They changed the lyrics. The new version still had a sharp edge, but now Anita's feelings came through without tearing down her heritage. It was a small victory, but it mattered. Then came the Oscars. Rita didn't think she would win. She was sure the award would go to someone else. When her name was called, she was frozen. Somehow she walked up to the stage, barely able to speak. All she could say was, "I can't believe it. Good Lord, I'll leave you with that." Backstage, she was ambushed by Joan Crawford, who hugged her so tightly that Rita's face was smashed into Crawford's chest. She laughed about it later, but there was something she couldn't laugh off. She wished she had said something more meaningful in her speech. She didn't mention that she was Puerto Rican or what it meant to win as a Latina in a world that rarely gave people like her a real chance. It was a missed moment. Still, she had made history. She was the first Latina to win an Oscar. It should have changed everything. It didn't. Rita thought the Oscar would open doors. She imagined exciting new roles, deeper characters, respect. Instead, the same old offers came in. Stereotypical parts, gypsy women, spitfires, cartoons of real people. She felt crushed. One day, she asked a well-known agent to represent her. The woman looked at her and said, "No, sweetheart, you don't have what it takes." Rita said it felt like the blood drained out of her body. That kind of rejection sticks, so she walked away. For 7 years, she didn't make another film. Not because she lost interest, but because she refused to keep playing roles that made her feel small. It was a bold move, and it cost her. She took other jobs to pay the bills: TV guest spots, nightclub performances, theater work in New York and London. She wasn't idle, but the movie world went on without her. Rita Moreno met Marlon Brando in 1954 when she was only 22. He was 30. The moment she saw him, something lit up inside her. She said it felt like her whole body was dropped into boiling water. Her face turned red, and she couldn't hide how much he affected her. That was the start of an 8-year love affair. Wild, passionate, and deeply painful. Brando was famous, powerful, and charming, but he was also a cheater. During their relationship, he married other women and had children with them. Rita knew about it all, but she kept coming back. She said it became like an addiction. She couldn't stop trying to win him over again and again, no matter how badly he treated her. She admitted later that he crushed her spirit. He didn't just cheat, he played with her emotions. She said she had become a doormat. He had many good qualities, but when it came to women, he was cruel. Things hit a breaking point in 1961. Rita found out she was pregnant with Brando's baby. She expected comfort, but instead, Brando quickly arranged for an abortion. It was illegal back then, and he paid a doctor $500 to do it. The procedure went wrong. She started bleeding heavily and had to be rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. Even then, Brando seemed to care more about getting his money back than about her pain. Not long after, he left to shoot a film. While filming, he started a new affair with a woman named Rita. He later married her. When he came back, Rita went to his house. All the heartbreak, the betrayal, the humiliation, it all came crashing down. She walked into his bedroom, took a bottle of his sleeping pills, and swallowed them. She lay down on his bed, ready to die. She said it wasn't revenge. She just wanted the pain to stop. She almost died that night, but Brando's assistant found her in time and rushed her to the hospital. Her stomach was pumped. She survived, but inside, something was still broken. Years later, she explained what she was thinking back then. She said she didn't feel like she deserved to live. She was filled with shame. After everything he did, she still loved him, and she hated herself for that. Eventually, she started therapy. Brando himself suggested it. It's strange, but the same man who broke her also pushed her toward healing. Her therapist told her to stay away from Brando forever. If she didn't, it might kill her. She listened. In 1962, they ended things for good. But it wasn't easy. She even dated Elvis Presley, just to make Brando jealous. When she got the offer to meet Elvis, she said yes, without thinking, partly to take back some control. She later said he was sweet, but boring. Little by little, she got stronger. She kept going to therapy. She started liking herself again. And in 1965, she married Leonard Gordon, a man who treated her better. But Brando wasn't completely out of her life. In 1968, 6 years after they'd ended things, they worked together again on a movie called The Night of the Following Day. It was filmed in France. She played his love interest. At first, they tried to stay professional, but old feelings came back fast. One night after dinner and too much wine, she woke up to find Brando next to her, whispering that he just wanted to sleep beside her. She told him no. Then came the moment that changed everything. In one scene, she had to slap him. As she lifted her hand, all the buried pain and anger rushed to the surface. She didn't just act, she exploded. She said it felt like a dam had broken inside her. Years of hurt came pouring out. The slap was real. Her rage was real. And the cameras kept rolling. That scene became one of the most powerful in the whole film. When Rita Moreno shouted, "Hey, you guys," on the electric company, she had no idea it would turn into something so big. Kids across America started yelling it in school hallways, driving teachers and principals crazy. She played a character named Millie the Helper on the show, and that phrase stuck in people's heads for years. Even now, when she walks into restaurants, strangers still shout it at her, and she laughs every time. But it wasn't just about a catchy line. Rita and the rest of the cast, including a young Morgan Freeman, chose to do the show to help kids learn how to read. They put their own careers on pause to make education fun. The show became so important that Rita won a Grammy in 1972 for the soundtrack album. That award became the second step on her way to something incredibly rare in show business. A few years later, she made another big splash, this time on The Muppet Show. Her guest appearance there earned her an Emmy in 1977. That gave her 3 major awards: an Oscar for West Side Story, a Grammy for the Electric Company, and now an Emmy. But Rita didn't stop there. The very next year, she won another Emmy, this time for her dramatic role as Rita Kapkovich on The Rockford Files. She went from singing with puppets one year to playing a tough former call girl the next, and won awards for both. It showed just how wide her range was. And with that second Emmy, she joined a very small group of people who had won all 4 major entertainment awards: Oscar, Grammy, Emmy, and Tony. At the time, only 2 others had done it before her. But Rita's path to Tony wasn't easy either. She earned it by playing Googie Gomez in the Broadway play The Ritz, a loud, over-the-top character who dreamed of being a star. Audiences loved her. In 1975, she won the Tony Award for the role. A year later, she brought the same character to the big screen in a movie version of the play. It took place in a gay bathhouse in New York, and Rita's performance stole the show. Critics praised her, and she was even nominated for a BAFTA. Her ability to take that same character from stage to screen without losing any of the magic showed just how skilled she was. By 1977, Rita Moreno had done something almost no one else had. She became an EGOT winner. She earned all 4 major entertainment awards in just 16 years. But even more impressive, she did it while constantly pushing back against the racism and stereotypes that followed her throughout her career. She wasn't just talented, she was also tough, determined, and proud of her heritage. And though only 19 people have ever earned an EGOT, Rita is still the only Latina in that group. She also achieved something called the Triple Crown of Acting, which means she won major acting awards in film, television, and theater. Rita Moreno had no idea that saying yes to one audition would lead to one of the worst nightmares of her career. She was performing on a cruise ship near St. Thomas when the offer came in, a chance to audition for a Golden Girls spin-off. It was too good to pass up. So, she dropped everything: boats, planes, bad weather. She pushed through it all just to make it to California in time. Exhausted and jet-lagged, she went straight from the airport to the audition. What she got in return was a cold room, silent executives, and a flat "thank you." No smiles, no feedback, nothing. She walked out feeling crushed. Then, somehow, she got the part. But the real trouble hadn't even started yet. The show was called Empty Nests, And from the moment she stepped on set, things spiraled. The creator, Susan Harris, got seriously ill and couldn't guide the writers. Without her, everything fell apart. Every day, the script changed. Her character, Renee Corliss, didn't just shift. She became a completely different person from one day to the next. Rita couldn't get a grip on who she was playing. By the time they filmed in front of a live audience, she didn't even recognize the role anymore. She couldn't remember her lines. Not because she was unprepared, but because nothing stayed the same long enough to memorize. The night of the taping was a disaster. The crew tried to fix things on the spot, but it was like putting out a fire with a spray bottle. Rita froze. Again and again. 15 takes of the same scenes, and still she couldn't hold on to her lines. The audience tried to be supportive. They started cheering her on. But even that made it worse. The pressure grew. Betty White, B. Arthur, Rue McClanahan, and Estelle Getty were there too, watching in silence, trying to send her strength with their eyes. It didn't help. Rita called it the most humiliating moment of her career. When the episode finally aired, it didn't even feel like the Golden Girls. Fans were confused. Who were these new characters? Why weren't the girls in it? The pilot bombed. Big time. So NBC tossed the whole thing and started fresh. A year later, a new version of Empty Nest hit the screen. This time, the show starred Richard Mulligan as a widowed doctor living with his daughters. No trace of Rita. No trace of Paul Dooley, who had played her husband. Just the same house set. And even that now belonged to someone else. But Rita's erasure didn't stop there. In the first episode of the new version, there was a moment that felt a little too pointed to be coincidence. One of the characters talks about her ex-husband leaving her. For who? A woman named Rita. And the way she said it, slow, sharp, dripping with bitterness, made it sound personal. Later in the episode, Mulligan's character even jokes, "You name a kid Rita, you got a damn good chance of getting a slut." Maybe it was just a name, maybe, but people noticed, and they talked. It felt like a jab. For Rita, it was just one more pilot disaster in a string of them. She once joked that pilots and her just don't get along. Still, this one hurt more than most. It happened right when The Golden Girls was one of the biggest shows on TV. She was already an Oscar winner, an EGOT. She had nothing to prove. And yet, there she was, fumbling for lines, being laughed at, and then, eventually, scrubbed out of the picture entirely. Rita Moreno was 65 when her career took a surprising turn. She was at a party when TV producer Tom Fontana came up to her. Instead of playing it cool, she looked him in the eye and said, "Then write me a fucking part." He did. That's how she ended up playing Sister Peter Marie, a prison counselor on the HBO series Oz. The role was powerful. She played a nun who listened to murderers, drug addicts, and liars, but tried to keep her own faith steady. The prison was brutal, and her character had to face tough choices and broken people. Even though she wasn't a criminal, she was deeply affected by the darkness around her. The role showed that Rita wasn't just the song and dance star people remembered. She could dig deep. She could be raw. And just like that, Rita was back. But she didn't stop there. At nearly 70, she finally recorded her first solo album. It was simply called Rita Moreno. Years later, she released another one in Spanish, showing she was still evolving as an artist. She also returned to the stage, tackling big emotional roles in Tennessee Williams' plays like The Rose Tattoo and The Glass Menagerie. On top of acting and singing, she also spoke up about health issues like osteoporosis, and even did public service ads to help causes she cared about. Whether on stage or in real life, she stayed active, committed, and passionate. Then came another surprise. In her mid-80s, she joined a brand new version of One Day at a Time on Netflix. Rita played Lydia, a proud, stylish Cuban grandmother with a dramatic flair and a deep love for her family. The show wasn't just good, it was loved. It scored almost perfect ratings, and Rita stole every scene she was in. Critics couldn't stop praising her. She won awards, made people laugh and cry, and proved, again, that she could still command a screen. People expected her to be nominated for an Emmy. Somehow, that didn't happen, but fans and critics agreed. She deserved it. And maybe because she felt more secure than ever, She started speaking more openly. For decades, she'd kept some things to herself, but now, in her 80s, she let it all out. She talked about bad projects, like a failed TV spin-off where the writing was so bad, even the cast knew it was doomed. She said the showrunner had been too sick to fix it, and no one else stepped in. She didn't say this out of bitterness, just honesty. Then, she went even deeper. In an emotional interview, she shared a dark memory from her youth. She had been raped by her own agent when she was just a teenager, but she didn't leave him. She couldn't. Her family needed money, and she was their only hope. That kind of pressure forced her to keep quiet for years, but now, she was done holding back. Rita spoke her truth, not just the triumphs, but the pain too. In 2021, her whole journey was captured in a documentary called Rita Moreno, Just a Girl Who Decided to Go For It. The film showed everything: her struggles with racism and sexism, the years of being typecast, the rocky romance with Marlon Brando, a painful abortion, even a suicide attempt. But it also showed how she survived, how she rose, how she earned an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. Only a handful of people ever have. The film featured stars like Lin-Manuel Miranda and Whoopi Goldberg, all praising what Rita had done and what she meant to them.